Hello everyone. Today we're going to start a discussion about pointers. This is probably one of the most complicated parts of the course, so make sure to rewatch this video as many times as you need to in order to internalize the concepts. Before I move on, you may already have an idea of how we can bypass this one return value limit. So you might be saying we can create a function that takes in an array as an argument and we can just feed in return values into the array. Well, that's valid, but if you remember, arrays can only hold data of the same type. What if we want to return multiple values of multiple types? Well, we could try adding more arrays as arguments, but then we're using unnecessary memory. What we can do instead is take in pointers of the return types. So let's say we're returning an int and a float. We can take in an int pointer and a float pointer, and then we can dereference this pointer and assign our return values to the variable that the pointer is pointing to. This is very similar to scanf, a function that we used before. As you can see, I have a small program here, and what we're doing is we're creating a function called separate components. And all this function does is it takes in a float and it returns out the integer part of the number and then the fractional part of the number. But the way that we return it is by taking in an int pointer and a float pointer. And then we just dereference the int pointer and assign it the integral part. And then we dereference the float pointer and assign it the floating point part. So that means that we have to already have variables where we're going to store the return values. And then we just calculate the integral part, and how we do that is we just cast the source float number or value into an int. And if you remember what that does, is that just converts it into an integer and it completely removes the fractional component. And then to get the floating point part or to get the fractional part, you just subtract the original floating point value with our integral part and it just returns the fractional part. So as you can see, all this function is doing to return the values is we're actually just tunneling these values from our function into some variables that were there beforehand.